Aloha and welcome to another episode of Honey Tea and Talk Story with Lani. Let's welcome Stephanie Hahn. She's here. Yay.
Aloha, Lani.
Aloha. So,
Yeah.
aloha. Thank you so
Aloha.
much for joining us. My next guest is a wonderful writer, author, teacher who I really admire and look up to, and she's just an amazing human being and mother. Dr. Stephanie Hahn is the award-winning author of Swimming in Hong Kong, founder of drstephaniehahn.com, an online platform for women's writing workshops, and the editor of Woman Warrior Writer newsletter, and the creator of Divorce Story Structure, a powerful tool to help women write their divorce stories for their legal and personal files. Annyeonghaseyo, Stephanie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to see you in person.
Yeah, it's fun. I agree.
Yeah. How's your weekend going?
It's good. I just surfed this morning, so it's all good.
Oh my God, you just surfed this
Yeah, I
morning.
surfed this morning at canoes. There was a little bit of bump, so it was fun.
I
And then,
love that. Oh my
yeah, so it
God.
was fun. Yeah, you have to come and we can surf.
That would be so wonderful. You're like the
Yeah.
only other Korean woman writer I know who surfs.
I know. Well, there's Mindy Pennybacker, right? Who's like the Korean American woman
Yeah.
who surfs because but
She
yeah.
wrote the book, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get
So,
into surfing? That's a good starting question.
I did it after I got a divorce.
Mm.
So actually one of the last things which I wrote about in my memoir is I had planned sort of a family surf lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And because as the marriage was decaying slowly, I figured maybe we needed a hobby, but
Yeah.
hobbies don't keep marriages together.
Mm.
So I booked a surf lesson and I was really excited because I had always wanted to surf and I had never done it. So even though I was coming here since I was a kid. So I booked a surf lesson. You know, I was with my kid. My kid was like 8, and of course he just pops up because
Yeah,
they're fearless.
They're so good. They are.
No center of gravity, whatever, they don't care. So he wrote in, and then it was my turn. I wrote in, and I was so excited because I was like, "Yay! I'm standing up, I'm surfing!"
Yeah.
And I walked to the camera, and it was like a tourist deal, so you can see the people on the camera. And my ex got up, and he was grimacing.
Oh gosh.
And
grimacing on a surfboard.
Right, because I felt it was this kind of, the wife got up, the kid got up, so he has to get up. And there was nothing fun about it. There was no joy. And the whole point of surfing is to have fun.
Yeah.
And so that kind of killed surf lessons, and the divorce ensued. And then later afterwards, I still wanted to do it. As the divorce kicked off, I booked a few surf lessons, but it was hard for me. Like literally, I'd be on the board and it was like I would feel my heart literally hurting. I tried I did it once or twice, and then I tried again. And for some reason, when I tried again, I just couldn't do it. I think part of it was the board. I was using the wrong board. I was on a foamy, and then finally, like after a long time, surf instructor tells me, I don't know what. He's like, use a different board. So I used a different board, and then I realized I was goofy foot.
You're goofy, me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, really? Yeah. I was goofy foot because I learned to skateboard goofy foot, and then I couldn't get that out of my head, even though I was like right-footed.
Yeah.
And so then I could surf. I figured.
Right on.
But anyway, yeah, that was the journey. So it's been a part of how I learned to move through fear to joy.
Oh, that's beautiful. Right on.
Because it's a real physical thing, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And then so you wrote a beautiful, divorce, how to help people with their divorce and claim their story. So can you tell us a little bit about that and that journey, how you started that project?
Yeah. So what happened was as I was getting ready to go to mediation, my divorce lawyer asked me to write my story. And
Mhm.
I'm actually a short fiction writer, so this should really be no problem writing a
Mhm.
story. But I couldn't. I procrastinated. I ate every pastry in the cafe.
I love that.
I I listened to self-help podcasts. I worked
Mhm.
out a lot. I was doing anything but write it. And
Mm.
I realized the reason I had a hard time writing it was because I knew once that the story was on the page, it's all the mistakes are belly up for the world
Mm.
to see and all the problems. And, the worst person to read it really is yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so I wrote it, and as I wrote it, one of the things that helped me was because I spent so many years of my life as a high school and a college teacher teaching like 5 paragraph essay and structure,
Mhm.
was that if I had a structure, it would help me.
Mhm.
And so in the process of writing it, I developed a structure to
Mhm.
write my story, and it made it a lot easier. What I began to do was to teach women how to write their divorce story using this structure so that, even if you're not a writer, you can dictate the answers to the question into a phone and transcribe it so your story is out there. And it's important to have for your personal file for sure,
Mhm.
because as you're going through it, there might be things that you forget. At least you have it there, right?
Yeah.
And it's a record that
Mhm.
stands. Maybe years from now, maybe your kids, if they were young, will wonder what happened or whatever, and
Mm.
you'll have that and you can show your kids if you care to. And
Yeah.
also, it changed the outcome of my divorce
Wow.
financially
That's
because
important.
um, I was able to, put my story down on the page. And because my story was down on the page, I had a little more courage in speaking my truth.
Mm.
And also because the story was down on the page, as soon as I walked into the office for mediation, the presiding mediator told the administrator, we need 2 separate rooms for these people. Because
Mm.
you don't necessarily always get those 2 separate rooms,
Mhm.
especially because it's done if your divorce is quite contentious and volatile, but it's not always done otherwise. And because I was able to put the truth on the page, even if it was very uncomfortable to speak,
Mhm.
we were positioned that way. And because of that, I could better negotiate and gather myself and be a little more calm during the proceedings.
That's so beautiful and empowering that you did not only that, but then you created this to help other women. I love that you did that.
Yeah, because I think that what women need to understand is that mostly what upsets women about divorce, of course, there's the business aspect, the financial aspect, but
Mhm.
there's an idea of shame and that somehow
Mhm.
something happened to your story, like
Mhm.
you messed up, the story is wrong, and society actually penalizes you. Women only divorce under duress. Women are aware of the societal dynamic and potentially the economic fallout.
Mhm.
So it's very hard for them to state their story. And
Yeah.
so if they state their story on the page, there's a record. My feeling is that it empowers women because then you have your voice back and returned outside of the rubric and paradigm of marriage. Like you understand, you have a voice, you have a story, you have a life, even
Yes.
if you're not within the traditionally recognized structure.
Yeah.
And so this was part of the reason I did it. And I also think that why women have a hard time maybe writing it, and I wanted to design it so women can dictate it, is that women are often uncomfortable about writing things for public consumption because we're not used
Mhm.
to seeing women write.
Yeah.
Women always keep diaries and
Mhm.
journals, but they kind of clamp up when it comes to something that's going to be publicly read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard that this got picked up by Oprah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I was so excited. It was picked up by Oprah Daily,
Nice.
and so it went out. I'm really hoping that everyone starts to write their divorce story for their legal and personal file, and it just becomes a standard practice. So right now, there are divorce lawyers who ask women to write their divorce story, but
Mm.
it's not common. Okay,
Mhm.
there are some that do it, but what women need to understand is if they do not write their story,
Mhm.
marry and you divorce under the words that are written by patriarchal law and belief.
Wow.
And the only way that you can have a right to, the only way you can insert your voice in then is to write something. And with
Mhm.
your lawyer's permission, put it
Mhm.
in your file. So I would like to see this as a regular practice. Just
Me
like when
too.
women give birth, they have a
Yeah.
doula. A lot of women have a doula now, right? It,
Mhm.
it
I had a
used to not
doula.
be right, but
Yeah.
30 years ago, women weren't necessarily having a doula, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But now a lot of people do it. It's quite common, right? It could
Yeah.
be a sister, it could be a former doula, it could be whatever, another
Mhm.
female figure in your community. But they understand that the medical establishment might not give them the support they need, and so they bring in another woman as a companion, right, to
Mm.
help them with this process. I
Yeah.
would like to see it just be bog standard. You're getting a divorce, okay, you get a lawyer
Mhm.
and you write your divorce story. Like it's no big deal. Everybody just
Yeah.
does this. And I think that would revolutionize divorce. And
I
I
agree.
also think that it would change ideas about how we marry, because what
Mm.
people now fail to understand a lot
Mhm.
of times, because we have non-arranged marriages, the majority of
Mhm.
the world still practices arranged marriages.
Mm.
But so it's a minority to be able to pick your spouse, right?
Mhm.
But what we don't understand is that, we are entering a business agreement.
Mm. That's true.
And if you are not given a fair equity when you leave this business
Mhm.
agreement, what you
Mhm.
need to reckon with as a woman is
Mhm.
that you were never in a fair business. You might have started
Mm.
the pie shop together,
Yeah.
but you are merely a pie shop employee. You were
Mm.
never a partner, because why wouldn't you have equity in your split otherwise?
I wish you were there when I was going through my divorce. That would have been really helpful. But you know what? We're going to include links in this interview, if that's okay with you, if you'd like, to all
Yeah,
the
that would be
things so people
great.
could purchase, because there's different levels that they can purchase, right? There's
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
okay, wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your childhood and your background, if you don't mind. Like,
Oh,
where did you grow up?
sure.
What kind of child were you?
So I was, my father, after he got his US green card, was
Mm-hmm.
drafted for the
Mm.
Vietnam War.
Mm.
But we served overseas. We lived overseas in Korea for a year and a half when I was
Mm.
like 5 to 6.5 or something.
Mm-hmm.
They were drafting medical doctors up to the age of 35. So he got his
Mm.
green card and then he got drafted.
Mm.
And so I grew up on military bases. He was also doing his residency in different places, everywhere from Buffalo, New York to Queens. I was born in St. Louis. I
Wow.
lived on what was in Presidio. It was then a military base. I lived there for second grade. And then he
Mm-hmm.
left active duty and was a professor of medicine at the University of Iowa. So I spent a lot of formative years in the Midwest.
Mm.
And then I went east to boarding school. And then my parents moved down to Tennessee, and I lived in New York and LA. And, I was kind of transient a lot
Mm-hmm.
in my lifetime, because I feel that that was just a habit that I
Mm-hmm.
had from being young. So I thought it was normal for people to move a lot. It's actually not that normal. Right.
Mm. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was my childhood. But a lot of my formative childhood experiences in terms
Mm-hmm.
of reckoning with who I was with identity was spent in Iowa,
Mm.
where, of course, not a lot of Asians running around
Yeah.
at that point.
Oh, that must have been challenging.
It was a little difficult, but there were good
Yeah.
things I can see also about that
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah.
There was a clear sky with the Milky Way, and there was never any
Beautiful.
dirt, and
Mm.
it was never polluted.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was good things too.
And when did you get into writing? When did you start your whole writing journey?
I was always a reader when I was young. Like I
Mm-hmm.
kept a diary from when I was in third grade. I have a little
Sweet.
diary,
Yeah. Me too.
and
I love that.
right? And I was a reader because it was hard for me to socialize. My mother was a reader. So she had told me, I was like, Mom, I don't have any friends. And she had said, well, if you read, you'll always have a friend in a book.
Oh, I love
This is
that.
this was
Yeah.
before, emotional and social learning where they give you like instructions on how to make a friend.
Yeah.
My mother's instructions were, yeah, read and
Yeah.
you'll be with a bunch of characters. And so
Hmm.
that made me a reader. And I think readers, serious readers, become writers.
Yes. And how did you start your first book? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, I started I started writing the short stories that I started writing the short stories that became the collection Swimming in Hong Kong almost 20 years before its publication,
Mm.
on and off. I finished the collection years before, but
Mm.
is it okay?
Do you want me to? I'm gonna go get her so she doesn't.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
have her
sorry.
beside you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because right now
Yeah,
she's.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
be right
yeah,
back.
yeah. She feels lonely.
But you said you started 20 years before.
Oh, well, what happened was I did started writing it, and
Mm-hmm.
most of the stories were done with a matter of like 7 years, or no, less, 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, revise and stuff, but I had to wait for society to change. I had to
Hmm.
wait for Mattress Girl at Columbia University. I had to wait for discussions of consensual sex to, for example, hit the mainstream media because that's what I was writing about
Mm-hmm.
before it ever became a discussion. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I realized was, had the book, we can always look at it, but had the
Mm-hmm.
book come out a little different, it would have been a very different kind of thing. But I was writing before people would see like a Black person standing next to an Asian person. You never saw
Mm-hmm.
that. And that was
Mm-hmm.
in my short story book, right? A Black
Mm-hmm.
woman and an old Chinese man and the dynamic in Hong Kong. And no one thinks that this is ever possible, but actually this happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is the globality of how we live.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think enabled my book to get published finally was the internet and the
Mm.
rise of social media images that
Wow.
showed people in different global cultural contexts
Mm.
interacting. And
Yeah.
this changed and allowed my book finally to be published
Wonderful. Right on.
because there was a very limited narrative of how
Mm-hmm.
we were supposed to construct ourselves as Asian
Mm-hmm.
Americans when I was
Mm-hmm.
first sending out the book, like in
Mm-hmm.
2005 or something, or four. And it was funny because years later, I was, and it got published in 2000, just published like late 2016, distributed 2017. But
Mm-hmm.
um, in 2018, I ran into my old professor at my MFA program, and she came up to me and she said, "Oh, you were writing ahead of your time."
Yeah, I was just thinking that in my head. I was like, oh, you were ahead of your time. That
And
happens.
really, that's what it was. And it's interesting because it is like that. Like my good friend, who's a Native American writer,
Mm-hmm.
is, writing her book now. And
Mm-hmm.
when she was in class with me, people would be like, "But they're not on the reservation." I mean,
Oh my gosh.
Native Americans happen to live in urban environments also, right?
Yeah.
And so actually, we were discussing and saying, I was like, hey, the time is now right for you. People will
Mm-hmm.
accept people in different geographical locales and situations
Yeah.
now, but they didn't accept that 20 years ago.
That's true. That's true. And you're working on a book now?
Yes. So I'm writing a memoir now. I'm nearing the end of it.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah, I'm
always
really
something.
excited. A little excerpt is coming out in a literary journal, an overseas journal in
Oh,
March.
wonderful.
But yeah, it's a memoir. It's called Break, a divorce
Mm-hmm.
story. And it's about the story of my marriage/divorce.
Right
Because
on.
I think that what I realized for my divorce story structure is, to me personally, I don't know, I guess it's like my time and age. It's more important for like, if I was going to keel over and die tomorrow. It's more important for women to have the divorce story PDF and the knowledge of how to write their divorce story. I care less about my own personal story, to be
Mhm.
perfectly blunt.
Mhm.
It's more about, you're in charge of your own story. How do you write your own story? And that is really what I want out in the world. But what I realized is, for me to have women understand why it might be important to get out in the world, or what it means, is I have to disclose my own story too. I'm not a lawyer.
Mm.
I'm
Mhm.
not a therapist. I'm a writing teacher, but people have
Mhm.
to know, like, why would she think that's important? Or what is the story about how you got this story structure? And so I wrote the story to kind of help this idea of women becoming more independent, to
Mhm.
explain that, everyone has this kind of story, and there are different kinds of, there are, there's a different way of framing yourself so that you can write your own story. And I think what happens often
Mhm.
for women in particular, if you're educated, is this idea that you're supposed to know better.
Mhm.
We all have feminist class 101, but
Yeah.
still, what happened? Like, how did I get in this situation? I knew better,
Mhm.
like, this wasn't something that I was necessarily daily seeing in my existence, or if a person did see it, it's like they didn't want to repeat the pattern. And so
Mhm.
women feel bad about themselves, like even being in this situation that leads to a divorce. So I wanted to share my story so that women understand, it happens.
Yeah, and there are millions of women who are going through this, so I really feel like it's such an empowering tool. And I love something that you wrote in one of your, I was, doing a little background research, and you wrote, I now work backwards from death. I write and teach what I believe to be the most important information that I can share with others. That just touched my soul. I was like, wow, you're really thinking about the long-term picture and what you can contribute. And I love that. That's such a,
Yeah, and I also think now it's age. I mean, I'm
mm-hmm.
60 now, and
Are
so
you
I don't,
60?
yeah, so I
Asians don't
don't,
raisin. You look fabulous.
it's filters. But it's getting a divorce. It made me younger.
Oh, wow. I love that.
It did. It made me
Yeah.
younger.
Me too. I feel you.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like I have now just sort of a certain level of life knowledge. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
now, after my last birthday, I was like, you know what? I don't really care. I I know how old I am, and now I claim it, and I
Yes.
think it's useful, rather than trying to think I'm not that age. I am that
Mm-hmm.
age, and with
Mm-hmm.
that age comes a lot of good
Wisdom.
things.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would
Beautiful.
never go back to what I was. Like, why? And it's funny. So these women I surf with are in their 60s and 70s. And one woman told
Nice.
me she wasn't a whole person until her late 50s.
I love that. Wow. I feel you. We keep growing
And
and
I
evolving.
Exactly. And I think what can happen is that society projects a lot upon women, and we feel the
Mm-hmm.
pressure to deliver a
Mm.
certain image, certain words, certain ideas to accommodate what we know is expected, in order to communicate, in order to get something, in order to whatever. But once you pass a certain threshold, honestly, it becomes
Mm-hmm.
very different. You
Mm-hmm.
become, in people's eyes, often sexually ineligible. You're not
Mm.
somebody who they want to they're threatened by you for your
Mm.
intellect or whatever. They're like, oh no, this
Mm-hmm.
person is not as malleable. This person is, and
Mm.
now I'm just like, fucking own it. Just own it. Like, I have
Yeah.
this now. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel proud of it. It was hard won. It was hard
Yes.
won through experience, through
Mm-hmm.
sweat, through ups and downs. So, and I still can make tons of mistakes, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
now I'm like, these are mistakes, and it's
Mm-hmm.
me making the mistake, and
Right
that
on.
is fine. And I'm still a human being. And now, like,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't
I
care.
love it. Right on. And what brings you joy?
I like the water.
Me too.
I like hanging out with friends when there's no pretense and people can
Mm-hmm.
just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I like being and thinking about different ideas. And I like a lot of physical movement. I do.
That's good. That's really
Yeah,
healthy.
I like, hula has been good for my soul. Hula changed
Oh
my
yeah.
life.
I love that.
My
Hula is
kumu
life.
changed my life.
God bless.
And yeah, I don't know what else brings me joy.
I've seen beautiful pictures of you dancing hula. I'm like, ay, ko aning,
Yeah,
namuhay po da.
yeah. It's been fun because there's
Mm-hmm.
a camaraderie
Yeah.
and it's a learning of poetry through your body, right? And as somebody who likes words, it's just exciting to think about, oh, how are words in my body? How does a word, like, what is the shape of this word? What does that
Mm.
mean? And then with
Mm-hmm.
music, it's fun.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Right
not very
on.
good, but it's still fun.
Yeah, it's still fun. So, who are some of your inspirations and why, would you say?
Wow, I have a lot of inspirations.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the women that I have invited or interviewed or approached through my Woman Warrior Writer Substack have
Hmm.
been women who have inspired me, like yourself.
I feel the
Like
same about you. You're
I
my
like their
ani.
writing. I like the way they express who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like Renee Sims, yourself, Shonda Buchanan, just Grace Cho. I mean, there's a lot of writers,
Mm-hmm.
Naomi Munavera, who I've invited, who I've interacted with in that very small way.
Mm-hmm.
And they really inspire me because they're women who have dedicated themselves to an idea of expression and
Mm-hmm.
expression of selfhood. And that takes a lot of courage
It
to put
does.
words on the page. It does.
And what a great way to connect with women whose writing you like and you admire, That's
Yeah,
such a
it's fun.
great idea.
Yeah, it's really fun. So it allowed me to meet with women and find out what made them tick
Mm,
and what they think about what they dream or how they view
mm,
authorship. Because to be an author, women have to put themselves out there. And I'm
mm-hmm,
always curious, like, how do you do it?
mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah.
Jasmine Iolani Hakes, she
Hula.
wrote Hula.
Yeah.
She said, whatever you're afraid of, write that,
Ooh, I like
right?
that. Yeah.
That's pretty intense, right?
Yeah, that is. What is this? Oh my goodness. Okay, and I was gonna ask you, yeah, what do you wish somebody had told you at the beginning of your artistic journey? Like, what kind of advice would have been helpful that you wish you had received?
Don't be afraid of guidance.
Mm,
People will help you. Not everyone wants to shut you down. I
mm,
experienced a lot of people shutting me down. So I was
mm,
very reluctant to get mentorship at a time when I should have gotten it earlier.
mm, mm,
Another thing is to make sure the people who surround you really want you to succeed. It's
mm.
really easy to commiserate with somebody when everybody's failing,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
no, that sucks. Yeah, they suck, but you know who your friends are and who's really in
Mm,
your corner when things kind of start to go your way,
that's interesting.
right? Because then they're cheering for you.
Yeah, that's true. Right on. And what kind of advice would you give somebody who wants to follow a similar path to yours?
Just keep writing
Mm-hmm.
and seek out teachers
Mm-hmm.
and instruction. You can always rebel once you understand the basics, but you
Mm.
have to know the basics in order
Yeah.
to rebel
Yeah.
and just have confidence that writing and art in and of itself is an expression of rebellion.
Yes.
And I would say just lean into your own voice of who you
Mm-hmm.
are because who you are, no one else is.
Mm.
And
That's beautiful.
you have something to say.
Yes. And what is your legacy? How do you want to be remembered?
I want, if I think about it,
Mm-hmm.
actually, I don't really care that much.
That's honest. I love that.
I don't.
Good.
Uh, I, I want money to help educate my son and get me through old age.
How old is your son
That's
now? Is
first.
he?
He's 17. That's
Oh,
first. Yeah.
good job,
I
mama.
mean, I don't think about it like that. I want
Mm-hmm.
cash, I want money, and I want ideally women to understand that other women might have some answers for them. But
Right
I'm not the
on.
one to tell them. That's
Yeah.
something that people have to do. And all I can do is try to do it myself. And maybe somebody else sees that I'm trying to do that too. And they do it. But
Yeah.
I'm not deluded about like my talent or anything like that. I don't care. I'm too fucking
You're
old
such
for
like a
that.
Korean
No,
woman.
I
I
mean
love
it's
it.
like right because the thing
Yeah.
is I think when I was younger, I
Mm-hmm.
really thought about that more. Like,
Uh-huh.
ooh, I want to write for this. I'm like, who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
Just like I need my bills paid,
Right on.
you know?
Yeah, I feel you. That leads to my next question, actually. So, how can we support you? Are there any books, retreats, events, or anything that we can do that you can share that can support anybody who's listening?
Sure.
Yeah.
I do teach classes online at
Hmm.
drstephaniehahn.com. I'm selling now my PDF, the
Hmm.
downloadable EPUB, How to Write Your Divorce Story.
We'll
And
include a
this
link
is
to that.
good. Yeah, this is good for anybody. Even if you're about to marry, it will still have
Mm-hmm.
information in it because it talks about partnerships and what that
Mm-hmm.
means. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it'll be helpful. And I have had women who are in partnerships read it and they thought it was actually quite useful. So I think it's anybody who negotiates, in particular, in a kind of partnership arena that might have some legal ramifications to it, right?
Yeah.
And so that I'm selling right now. I'm also do accountability sessions.
Hmm.
So, you get a link once a month. We're on and we write. And so that, and please sign up for my Woman Warrior Writer Substack. And I will be
Yeah.
announcing the pre sale of my downloadable How to Write Your Divorce Story class. Right now, it's a
Hmm.
kind of a live class, but I think what women often need and benefit from is doing it privately on their own,
Yeah.
not with a group of other, it's private. People feel really
Mm-hmm.
emotionally upset often with divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still, there's the haze of shame. So I think once women can download that as a class, that
Mm-hmm.
would be awesome. So sign up
Yeah.
to pre order or get your, see the announcement on Women.
Right on. Thank you. Is there
Thank
anything
you.
that you want to do on your bucket list for before you pass or ascend to the next realm? Is there anything still there?
I want to surf better. That's one of the big bucket list things that
I love that.
I want to be a competent surfer.
Mm-hmm.
I am planning this now, but I want to see all the people who have been important to me in my
Mm,
lifetime again in the flesh,
yes.
wherever they
That's
are in the
beautiful.
world.
Yeah.
I would like to see that. And I guess there's a few places I wouldn't mind traveling, but I feel a lot of joy where I am
Mm-hmm.
right now,
Right on.
geographically.
Yeah.
I feel contentment
Mm-hmm.
and um, I'm very happy here.
Oh,
Hawaii
that's
is
good.
a very beautiful place.
Yeah, and your family has a rich history there.
Yeah,
Yes. It's
yeah,
Korean Americans.
yeah.
They were one
It's
of the
funny
first.
because my grandfather actually, my great grandfather, came in
Mm-hmm.
1904, and one of the first
Mm.
places he was assigned to as a Korean Christian missionary was Ola'a, or then
Wow.
Ola'a, on Big
Mm.
Island,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And then he died in Maui,
Mm.
in Paia, Maui.
And what was your journey back to Hawaii, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so what happened was most of my maternal clan was from here. A lot of them left, especially
Mm-hmm.
my generations. The cousins all went to the mainland or the
Mm-hmm.
continent to work, etc. So, but I always wanted to come here. I felt it
Mm.
was a good place. This is where I felt the tension of being Asian American on the continent erase.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You
I
just don't
feel you.
deal with it.
Yeah.
And that is a huge, as Toni
Mm-hmm.
Morrison said, it is a huge
Mm.
burden and often a huge fucking waste of time of your emotional
Mm-hmm.
energy. And
Yes.
to not have it all the time pressing down upon you, to not have to
Yes.
continuously discuss this
Mhm.
every single day
I
is
agree.
is a huge relief.
It is.
So that was a lot of it, and I wanted my child also to experience that. And so
Right on.
I came in 2015 because I was, separating from my ex, and my mother had finally moved back after
Mhm.
years on the continent.
Mhm.
And so it was a combination of wanting my child to have a particular kind of American education.
Mhm.
I was living overseas at the time.
Right
And
on.
personally what was going on, although I did not understand the degree to which it was probably driving me away from where I was living. I didn't know until later.
I bet your son thanks you for
I don't
moving.
know, he's
Oh,
had,
really?
it's difficult here because he wasn't from here when he was super little.
Yeah,
So it's a
yeah.
little different. But, I think it's been a good place. And,
Mhm.
I watch, we're not absent from it here, what's going
Mhm.
on politically,
Yeah.
as we all know.
Yeah.
This is the home of the Pacific Command and everything else. I mean, it's all kicking off.
Mhm.
But, there is a fundamental relief, the images and what was going on in particular with a lot of the Asian American population
Mhm.
during the first Trump administration.
Mhm.
I'm bluntly glad that I don't have to be a part of that situation and
Yeah, me
feel that
too.
myself,
Yeah.
you know?
That's real. Speaking of
It's
all
real.
that, the craziness that's just like the madness of the world. How do you deal with that? Do you like unplug or do you surf or what is your coping mechanism for?
I always try to get some physical activity every day.
That's good. Oh, it's wise.
And also, this, what is going now is really a product of late stage capitalism. No one should
Yes.
be actually that surprised. If you were
Mhm.
around for the Reagan administration at all, who dismantled
Mhm.
everything, which is now we're having this wild, chaotic time. This was
Mhm.
born of an earlier time. But if you really look at a lot of the structure of the United States, we should not be shocked. I mean, our
Mhm.
Constitution was designed by people who were enslavers. Declaration of Independence, all this, it didn't include women. We have
Mhm.
changed a lot as a national body. And
Mhm.
so, in many ways, our governmental system has not kept up with who we have become. And,
Mhm.
you can talk about all this stuff like, oh, but we have not changed the electoral college. And
Yeah.
until you change the electoral college system in the Constitution, that should be number one on everybody's list. Until you
Mhm.
change that, this could just happen again.
Mm.
So, it's hard to, people are understandably thinking it's going to get right again if so and so leaves office. It is not. It is
Yeah,
not
it's
going
the
to get right
system.
again because it is a deep systemic problem and we have to reckon with it. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that until we see what we
Mhm.
really are and face the truth
Mm.
of what we are as a nation, it will
Mm.
not change.
I feel you.
It's just not going to change. So, I look at it. Sometimes I sign off on the news. I mean, there's
Mhm.
just like every time you sign on, there's something else.
Mhm.
And the main thing I think people also have to think about is
Mhm.
the whole point of what is going on right now is try to
Mhm.
confuse you and put you in a state of
Yes.
chaos so you
Yes.
cannot think clearly. But right
Yeah.
now, what we need to gather up is our imagination and our
Mm.
sense of community. And if we do
Yes.
not have an imagination to rethink how we might organize or address certain systemic things with the new ideas in place, we will be
Mhm.
nowhere. And the other
Mhm.
side, whoever they are and whatever it
Mhm.
is, will have won. So we need to preserve that space that allows us
Yes.
to have imagination, that
Yes.
allows us to think very carefully and freely,
Mhm.
or we're nowhere. So always
Yeah.
remember that too.
I love that. And thank you. And what matters the most to you?
What matters the most to me is
Mhm.
people being cognitively aware
Mhm.
that all the things that we
Mhm.
believe
Mhm.
are rooted in words that
Mm.
originated and have
Mhm.
been recorded
Mm.
by men. Men have historically controlled our narrative
Mm.
religiously across every single culture. We
Mhm.
behave often as women in reaction, and we need to
Mm.
be aware and we
Mhm.
need to seize the narrative.
Yes, I love you. I just want you to know that as a Korean American woman writer, you have been so supportive to me on my journey, and I'm so thankful. And not only to me, but to countless other women. You're really a supporter of other women, which is so beautiful and valuable. And I'm just so grateful for you. So I just want you to know that. So,
But thank you.
고마워요.
Yeah, thank you so much
사랑해.
for all the writing that you do too, because I think it
Thank
really
you.
it gives people something to talk about and to hang on to. And you're
Hmm.
a great writer.
And you are too. And you're a great community builder. And it's just an honor and a pleasure to know you. So,
Yeah.
고맙습니다.
Yeah. Come and surf here in a while.
I will. Yeah, let's make a surf day for sure.
Yeah. That's
Okay. 고맙습니다. Thank
okay.
you so much. Okay. Aloha.